Y'all ready? All right. Good morning. I'm Pastor Marvin Hightower, and I'm the president of the Peoria branch NAACP. The purpose of this press conference, it's not an open meeting, it's a press conference, is to talk about the city budget and the possible impact that it may have, and more importantly, to make the community or have the community be aware of what's going on. Since 2009, our city's workforce has gone from 800 to just under 700 employees. Our police department, even though they will still be hiring, will be short of officers. Since Chief Jerry Mitchell has left, this will be the first time in over 40 years that there will be no African Americans in command. As you know, we have had 3 police-involved shootings that have been deemed justified by our state's attorney, of which the last one was Luis Cruz, which looks like it shouldn't have because of all of the gray and all of the holes in the report. It seems, or it looks like, we will either have our property taxes raised or be assessed a parcel fee that will include homeowners and nonprofits to pay for pensions of over 70% of the police officers who do not live in the city and will not contribute themselves, including our newly appointed police chief, Marion. Our fire department, which has very little diversity in it, especially in the upper ranks, is being depleted through voluntary separation agreements and won't be hiring, doing any hiring or replacing those fire department, those firemen or fire personnel. From one minute we hear that a firehouse will be closed or they won't be closed. We're hearing that they're going to be combined, which one is already a combined firehouse from what I understand. In District 1, which is one of the most, it is the neglected part of the city for over 30 years. The facts show that. The Bible tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves, and it seems Peoria is falling short of that. We have found out about the Other Past Employment Benefits Fund, or OPEB, which had millions of dollars in it and is now down to the minimum. And from what I understand, the city has borrowed $17 million to fund the general fund and another $5 million in other areas with no plan to pay back or what the ramifications of this will be. And it was discovered in a meeting, and it seemed as if the city council did not know about this fund. So we have several questions I'd like to ask the mayor, the city manager, as well as the city council. What happened to the fund and who knew about it? Why hasn't it been mentioned until now? Why didn't the city council members know about it? And why is there no policy for its use? These monies can be moved around with no oversight. And where did those funds go to? Number 5 and 6, what is the plan going forward? And will this problem come up again? I used to think, and I have said, Peoria was the tale of 2 cities, but now I believe Peoria is the city of perpetual recession. The budget is a problem, but there is a glaring issue which our city has been mismanaged. Now there is an election in the spring and another one not too long after that. And as I always say, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Thank you.
One of the concerns that I have, well, I have many concerns, but one that has always troubled me is that it seems as though every time there is a shortage in the budget of this city, the the African-American community especially is called on to suffer the damage from that. Every time in the past that there's been some suggestion that, for example, the fire department ought to be one of the entities looked at to help the budget out, it means that the South Side gets less coverage or more extended coverage in terms of time in an area where most of the houses, I suspect, don't even have fire alarms in them or fire notification alarms. And so the fixing of the budget always falls on the backs of the African American community. I'm sure the community knows that the NAACP recently had negotiated an agreement, actually an ordinance with the City Council to improve employment of African Americans both in the fire department and the police department. And it was supposed to be a process that would take a number of years, but eventually it was intended for employment in those two organizations to reflect the population of this community. Well, that apparently is going to be thrown out the window, that ordinance, because of the reductions. Now, I know that there's talk that there's going to be no reductions, but that seems to be pie in the sky as far as I'm concerned. And the reductions that are called on in both the fire department and the police department over the years to balance this $6 million hole that we have in the budget. And so, again, those individuals in both those departments who have been hired under this ordinance, even though it's been in for a very short period of time, will be the first to go. Last hired, first fired. And so again, in terms of the residents in the South Side, the city is asking them to bear the brunt of repairing this hole in the budget. They didn't cause it. They didn't make the loan of $7 million to the Pierre Marquette. Citizens didn't make the loan or forgive a $1 million loan to the ballpark. When you look back at the deals this city has cut, Cub Food on Knoxville, Cub Food out on Big Hollow Road, and several other projects that this city has funded that have gone belly up. And now the citizens in the south side of Peoria are required to help to solve the problems that have been created not only by the council, but by the administration. So I say to the citizens, especially in the south side, as Pastor said, there's an election coming up. And we need to put those officials on notice that we're going to be watching and we're going to be out and we're going to be voting. And so I would suggest to you that you watch the votes of the city council on this issue. And when if they vote against your best interests, we implore you to get out to vote and vote against their best interests.
Good morning. Another concern that we have is that it seems that with the specificities of the budget and its cuts, that those cuts were asked to be voted on before the total investigation had been done about all of the moving parts. And the other thing was that it was insinuated that one organized labor, which is AFSCME, should be grateful that they weren't come after and other organizations are. We're here to tell you, and I'm the chairman of the Labor and Industry Committee for the NAACP. We're here to tell you that we're not interested in that mentality or cutting the baby in half. Organized labor is organized labor. And we feel that AFSCME, the fire department, the police department, trades, crafts, electricians, we feel that it is all important because after all, the labor organizations are the ones who make the city of Peoria happen. And for some reason, this city manager and this council, for the most part, according to their votes at the last hearing, is not seeing the importance of that. You can't keep coming on and cutting the budget and putting it on the backs of labor, of the working men and women of the city of Peoria. And our fire, this is a life safety issue we're talking about when we're talking about fire and police. And those people that make it happen, such as our dispatchers and our administrative specialists, and all of the moving parts that make the city of Peoria happen. So again, to echo what our officials are saying is that you need to be very careful on your voting because we're going to be watching. It seems that 61605 is not only forgotten, it seems that it's part of always the plan when it comes to cutting resources. It always seems that 61605 suffers, and we're not going to deal with that anymore. So I'd like to acknowledge that we have Ryan here with us today. I'm sorry, a little nervous. In terms of the fire department head of the union. And we're so grateful that he's here with us as all of our fire, if the cameras could show all of the fire engineers that are here with us. We want to make sure that they are represented properly, and we want to make sure that no cuts are happening there. And if you've got pots of money that are not being watched over, then that is an issue. And the council needs to take heed to that. We know that Councilperson Jensen attempted several times at the last hearing to make different proposals to save monies, but she was shut down on voting at every turn. So we want to say to all the council, be very careful, because don't underestimate the people of 61605 because of the reports you're hearing. We vote. And this last election should have showed everybody that we can move. We are a movement. The NAACP is a movement. Thank you.
As the chair of the NAACP Community Engagement Committee, I just want to ask everybody that's concerned about Peoria City's budget to show up tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the City Council special meeting on the budget. It's important that we show up and also voice our concern about this possible cut in public safety. I know that the story is that they're not going to cut people, but it's going to be absorbed through attrition. But if you don't replace people, that's cutting people. And so we're very concerned about how this city is being managed. And the saying says that if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, it's called insanity. And today we're saying that we have no confidence in the leadership of Peoria City right now. And so we're calling out the mayor, we're calling out the city manager, and we're also calling out the city council to let you understand and know is that we have expectations with our vote. Our vote will no longer be given simply because of friendship or loyalty or anything. We have expectations, and the expectation is that the city of Peoria is being represented properly. Thank you. And we do have two council members in the audience today, and would love if you have anything that you would like to add to this conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I just like to thank the leadership of the NAACP for calling this press conference, because I think it's important. I've been one of the 2 or 3 council people who have been vocal about not supporting the proposed budget and the proposed cuts. At the last meeting, I made proposals that totaled $2.6 million. 2 of them were additional revenue, but the rest of them were eliminating contributions that we make to other programs. as well as reducing the proposed amount to put into the reserve fund. And that's a lot of money, and that would save most of, if not all, of the proposed positions that the city manager and the majority of the council are supporting. On the issue of some of these layoffs may not occur because they may have enough employees accept the early retirement. What I say to that, even if the layoffs don't occur and we're able to keep the people that are in the workforce right now, the budget is still proposed to eliminate 22 firefighters. So even if there aren't layoffs because the older people that have more seniority take early retirement, the proposed budget is still to eliminate 22 positions, which includes 11 firefighters that are assigned to the south side. We don't have yet what that proposed increase in response time will be. We didn't have it last week when a majority of the council voted in favor of moving forward with those proposed cuts, because as I think Reverend Hightower mentioned, the plan seems to be changing each week. Even the council doesn't know exactly what the plan is yet. I guess we'll be told about it tomorrow at our meeting. But the last time I asked, the increase in response times by the chief were 2 minutes and 16 seconds would be increased for the south side, downtown, and Bradley. And that to me is not acceptable. So I appreciate the NAACP for having this press conference, bringing these issues forward. And I ask anybody that is concerned about these cuts and this proposed budget to contact your city council people, to email them, call them, and show up at the meetings tomorrow and get people involved, because it's not a done deal yet. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate the NAACP for what you've done in the community thus far, in the past and in the future. I became aware of the NAACP when John Gwynn was here. And I thank the firefighters who are here and everybody else who decided to attend. So a couple of things that I've just heard I want to make a correction on. We actually do know what the response times are, as evidenced by the 2 minutes and 16 seconds that was mentioned. So if we know that, then we know what the current response times are. As of 7:20 this morning, well, actually I was meeting with the fire chief at 4:35 on Friday, because I don't wait to be presented with information on a Tuesday of a council meeting. I try to be proactive and get information in advance, find out what can be changed before and after and during the meeting. What I've learned was that the response times on the south side for years has been better than every place else in the city of Peoria. Every place else in the city of Peoria has a longer response time than the south side of Peoria. After these changes, yes, that response time is going to go up. And even after it goes up, the south side still has better response times than every place else in the city of Peoria. And so response times are important. Someone asked me at a meeting that I was at before I came here, so what burns as far as how much time something burns, and you guys know that, firefighters know that better than I do and could relate that. I don't have that information because I don't work for the fire department. But I do want to dispel the fact that the south side, long before I even moved to Peoria, had always had better response times. As far as the cuts that were proposed last week, I'm not going to vote to cut somebody's salary. And one of the proposals was to cut your salary by $10,000. I just don't believe that's necessary. I think we can get where we need to be without cutting your salary by $10,000. You work to get to that salary level, and unless you have done something in your job performance that requires that to be pulled back, I'm not going to vote to cut your salaries. I think that's really all I have to say at this point.
But is that for employees over $100,000?
Can I respond to that? The proposal, that wasn't the proposal. The proposal was to reduce management salaries of
Yes.
people that made over $100,000 by $10,000. And then anybody who made over $70,000 by 5, and it was for management only. And that was just one of the proposals. That proposal would reduce the budget by $407,000. But that was only one component of the number of proposals that I brought forward. You still could save $2.2 million if we did a combination of the other ones, if you weren't in favor of that. So I just want to clarify what the proposal was.
So let's say it was $1. I'm not so elitist that I'm going to cut somebody else's salary.
But you
without
don't have any
knowing-
problems laying people off, though.
And let's get to that.
Yeah.
22 positions are not going to be laid off as of 4:35 on Friday. And again this morning at 7:20. 22 positions are not leaving. Even on Tuesday, the meeting lasted from 6 o'clock to 10 minutes to 12. Now I realize a lot of people will probably sleep by 10 minutes to 12. But even on Tuesday, twice, had the city manager go through and tell us how many positions are we losing. And let's not talk about positions, let's talk about people. There were 9 open seats right now that are not, there's nobody in those positions right now. So you're not cutting people that are not there. So that left 13. And on Tuesday, and go back to the videotape, it's online, everybody can see it. The city manager twice walked through how we were down to covering, I think it was 3 or 4 that we had not yet covered by Tuesday at 10 minutes to midnight. By 4:35 on Friday, and talking with the fire chief, all positions were covered.
But you're talking about that those people are taking early retirement, so you won't have to lay off 22 people. But the proposed budget is still to eliminate those positions, so those positions, those 22 positions will not come back.
Beth, you're smart enough to understand what
I
that means.
am smart enough, I know
Yes,
what that
and let's
means.
not
That-
confuse people.
I'm not
with something
confusing
that, yes,
people.
you are.
No,
Ryan
It's
with the fire
unfortunate.
department.
Listen,
I'd like to
wait a
hear
minute.
from
We
you.
don't have, I would like to also have, I love labor. I tell people my dad was 35 years UAW. My mom was 22 years AFL-CIO. And my husband was 30 years SAG-AFTRA. So I'm a labor baby. However, I do, just as you have all sides of the story here, you don't. You don't have anyone representing other than labor. And I'm a labor person, so don't get it twisted.
Labor's the one that's being impacted by these decisions,
No,
that's why.
the whole city, not just labor, the whole city is being impacted by this. I think we can all agree that this is not a budget that I like. This is not a budget that anyone around the horseshoe likes. This is not a budget that labor likes. This is not something other residents of Peoria likes. We should be more concerned, not just about labor. Labor is important, but not just about labor. This is something that every citizen in Peoria is being impacted by and should have a voice, not just the people in this room.
Well, we're concerned about labor when labor seems, with all due respect, council person, we're concerned about labor. I'm a 5-generation unionist from the coal mines of Kentucky to now. But we're concerned when it seems that the impact of the budget cuts, not seems like, you can go back, the facts are there. Pastor talked about how many people we have lost in the workforce since these horrible cuts have happened for years. Every time you look around, every year, there's a deficit. So what I would like to do is let's have Ryan Brady come. He is the president of the fire department, Union 50, and allow him to speak. Since we do have so much respect for labor, let's let him.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate everybody from the NAACP, especially Pastor Hightower, Mr. Jackson, Sherry Carter Allen. I appreciate your time. What I will say is, in trying to talk about what Councilwoman Moore is discussing about 22 positions and possible layoffs, there's a strong possibility if enough people take the VSI that layoffs won't happen.
Can you
However,
say what the VSI is?
so the VSI is what we call the voluntary separation incentive, or an early retirement incentive. It tries to keep, as everybody in this room has said, those last hired and those that would be the first out still employed, because we have a vested interest in those people. whether it's training, whether it's the fact that they're city residents. They are our future of this department. However, when those positions are eliminated through the VSI, we're not hiring, and I think that's where the confusion becomes. Those 22 positions will be eliminated, so we'll go from a staffing of roughly 203 last year with 6 reductions, brings us down to 197. We'll be down to 177 sworn firefighter positions. So there will be a reduction, and those positions will not be filled, period, through the end of the year, probably into 2020, and that's concerning for us. As I've expressed my concerns with the people seated in front of me, we have a vested interest and we have buy-in in trying to diversify and have the fire department be a reflection of our community, period. End of story, not debating it. These positions, when they are eliminated, goes hand in hand with reducing that diversity problem. These positions won't be hired. It doesn't give us the chance to meet those goals that Mr. Jackson and Reverend Hiretire have sat down as far as diversity and implementing those procedures. We will not be hiring in the foreseeable future. With a reduction of a worth of 15+% over the past 12 months, we will not be in the position to hire.
Ryan, do you know how many positions will be eliminated in Fire Station 8 and 4?
So, again, this is still up for debate, and this is my huge struggle right now. We don't know what firehouse is going to be closed or what fire station is going to be eliminated. But regardless of whether it is Station 8 on Probert across the street or Station 4 on Jefferson, or maybe potentially shutting down something at Central House, when you talk about shutting down a fire machine, whether it's an engine, a rescue squad, or a ladder truck, it's a reduction of 11 personnel. So wherever that cut is made or reduction throughout the city, it's a reduction of 11 fire positions, period. Question?
So Station 4 and Station 8 are not closing. Robert's not closing. Jefferson's not closing. It was
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
This is one of our, this is a
Recently
retired fire
retired
captain
fire.
who's worked
Yes.
down here for several years.
Her numbers, she states about this area down here, let's just say, the south end. She states that it's been the most covered. It's the busiest. So what do? Don't you cover the busiest? So if you take one apparatus away from down here, being the busiest, yes, it's still gonna get covered. It's not gonna be covered the same rate it is right now.
You're right, you're
That's how
absolutely
simple
right.
that is. And when you start that game,
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
fire down here. Let's just take it down right in front of the poorhouse, okay? Right now, there's a squad, 2 engines, and a truck, and a battalion chief, okay? Squad's gone, now you have to bring another engine down, okay? That's another apparatus that has water on it, okay? Guess what we do after that starts? It's a fire. Now there's a machine out north, Station 19, Frostwood Parkway. It leaves to come down here to cover this territory because you're bare. You have nobody else down here. That's what you don't have on there. That's what I'm going to tell you. You don't have that statistic.
You
Huh?
got 4.
No, Central's here. They're here.
No, this is 8.
Listen, on a working fire, I just told you how many machines have to be here. That's what I mean by that. They have to come and cover this area.
What about Armstrong?
The 3 house?
Yeah.
They'll be coming also. You just took the squad out of service. You've eliminated some piece of apparatus. As soon as you do that, you've made another apparatus come down here to be first line of attack.
But isn't that the same way in the 5th district?
It's the same way in every district to start out with, okay? But as soon as you move them, as soon as it happens, then another area gets depleted.
I understand that.
So watch what happens when there is something down here. 19s leave and come to cover the forest territory because it's the busiest, okay? 15 goes to Central House to cover Central's territory because it's the second busiest. All of a sudden, what you have out north is 20s and 16s. So out on Wilhelm and out on Northmore. Do you see how it impacts the whole city?
Everything impacts.
You
Everything's
take away
connected.
one though, and you're depleting the whole city. That's
Everything's
how simple
connected.
that is.
And the other problem is we're not talking about deleting one, we're taking 2. And again, I don't care where any of this happens. When you start talking, eliminating these positions, it affects the entire city, but we're gonna lose 11 firefighters in the 61605 zip code in some form or fashion. 11 in Council District 1, 11 in Council District 2. This is going to drastically impact the way we do business. I don't know how else to say it.
Drastically impact. That's a good word.
And then let me say, and we'll be ending here, let me just say this. The budget, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, is a problem. But there's an issue of mismanagement of the city. And that is proven in the data. All you have to do is go back to 2009 until today. It's been a perpetual recession. We never rebounded from the Great Recession in the 2000s. And that's just the facts. So our premise is this. Yes, we're in trouble, and we're going to have to do something, but there's an election coming. Make sure you keep your ear to the ground, and as it's been stated, we are no longer going to take what we cannot change. We're going to change what we cannot take anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, you guys need to know that we've got $2.5 million in this budget for a new fire station on the south side. So just to let you know, 2019, there's $2.5 million in the budget for a new fire station.
Reverend Hightower, you said at the beginning you were talking about the money in the 17 million. Are you talking about the OPEB account?
Yes.
So is that, where are you saying that money is?
We don't know.
We were told at the council meeting, I was the one who brought it up, when it was brought to my attention last week. It was brought to my attention last Monday night at a meeting, and I met with the city manager and asked him about it. And he said that he used $17 million to pay for bills from the general fund. And then $5 million to cover bills from a different fund. But then I asked about it on the council floor, and he said that the account has $1.5 million in it right now that's liquid.
It started
It's
at
to
30
cover, it's the retired employees' benefits, and he said that it costs the city about $400,000 a year to cover those benefits currently. My understanding, and I just got those answers on Tuesday, and I asked him if he needed council approval to shift that money, and he said no, not at this time. Now that is something that the council can look to, requiring city council approval in the future for using those funds. My understanding is that the fund will be paid back when the other funds, get more money, become more liquid.
But the OPEB money, it's been moved, but are you saying there's this pot of money that's still there, or?
No.
Not
So I'm
anymore.
just trying, okay.
He told us it was 1.5 as of last Tuesday.
It was originally 30 million, is that not correct, Brad?
That's what I was told.
So you're saying it should not have been used?
Well, no, not saying that. We simply weren't aware, and it seemed that the council
And we weren't aware of
That
it.
it's being moved?
that it's being moved around. There's no oversight of policy.
Until I asked questions about it last week.
Thank everybody for coming this morning, and come to the council meeting tomorrow night.
Yes.
We should do that anyway.
It's a,
Do that anyway.